Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Jackson, I want to commend you because I think you actually linked in earlier than me.
I did. I'm so excited about it. I was a minute early. You're right.
Okay, you tell me what you're excited about, and I'll tell you what I'm excited about because
we're both excited.
That's kind of the two ingredients that you would like at the beginning of a podcast. That both
fascinated and
partners, fascinated and motivated. And, if you have fascination and you have motivation as basic ingredients, almost any dish will turn out well.
But I love it. Well, I mean, okay, so many things that I'm excited about, but one of them is that I know you don't watch television, but the Grammys were last weekend, and our observation of Lil Nas X and the grand, Cloudlandia, Who Not How experiment culminated in 2 Grammys.
Yeah, so and not only that, but can I tell you something else?
Okay.
One of the featured commercials on the Super Bowl today is Old Town Road. With the actor Sam Elliott doing his best to sing.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, when you look at this, like that whole thing, Dan, he pushed. If you go all the way back to the genesis of it, he downloaded the beat from Young Keo in November, yes, of 2018. So, maybe 14 months ago, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that 14 months, he made the song, got it on the internet, got to be the number 1 song in the history of songs, and won 2 Grammys, and is featured on the Super Bowl. Like, what a world are we living in right now,
Well, it's one collaboration to a higher level of collaboration to a higher level of collaboration. And
with a direct,
I think this is a great Free Zone Frontier example, and you're coming to the summit. Why don't you walk everybody through that? I'll give you a spotlight at the summit. Chris Voss is going to be our featured speaker, but I'll have you just add stage 2 to the one that you presented to us. I think it was in September or October.
Right.
You presented this to us, and I'd like you to take it even further. And if you could put a couple more film clips together with the original one, I think this would be an absolutely point-on, super demonstration of what we're talking about that can happen in the Free Zone Frontier.
Okay, perfect. And that is, I was so excited.
You have a unique assignment. Should you accept this assignment,
yes,
Professor Jackson? Here's what's possible.
Yes, of course. So, I mean, that is, and I was going to say that all amplified by a 1-to-1 connection with the entire world possible.
Yes.
Like you look back 20 years ago, all the music had to go through 6 guys in LA deciding what's going to be on the label. Curators. They were probably
curators. They were
curators. Yeah.
They had worked their whole life to achieve their position as chief curator of the world's music.
Yes. And
you
now
can't believe the number of boring parties that they went to achieve their position as chief curators. You don't believe the amount of really boring mainland work that these individuals had to do. And then a teenager in Amsterdam and a teenager in Atlanta, both just pursuing their own fascination and motivation, clicked together and then look for other collaborations, and they produce probably the number one, certainly on Billboard, the number one song in the history of the Billboard, which goes back 100 years.
Yeah. Which is just, I mean, it's the whole thing is fascinating to me. And but it just shows
and it kind of tells you why when you have a big goal that you should not do the house that are not appropriate for you.
Right. Yes. And the fact that there's no that it's such a time compression when you're into Cloudlandia here, that there's just that. It's funny how we talk about the old days as when television, if you look back, let's call it 50 years, that what was shaping us culturally was television, and there were 3 networks that were the tubes that everything was coming through. And when you look at it now, the thing that's really interesting about what's happening now is you could argue that, for the kids coming up now, that YouTube, TikTok, Instagram are those 3 things right now, right? That is our even though there's so many other options now, but they all get to choose their own adventure, yet they end up choosing similar adventures,
Yes. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and this is becoming one of those, building blocks of my general attitude of being born during the Second World War and now living, living in the age of Brexit, because, like if I measure my, I was born in May of 1944, and during the first 2 weeks of my life, massive forces were organizing themselves on the part of the Americans and the British and the Canadians. Those were the 3 main Western allies, and they were going to launch an invasion of the European continent, which was controlled by the Nazis, by the Germans. And that happened in the first 2 weeks of my life. And I was watching the other night on the 31st of January, where the British were withdrawing. It was like a reverse Normandy. They were,
come back. Yeah, exactly.
They were saying, we've been over there for 75 years, and it doesn't do us any good. So we're going to go back to we're going to go back home. And but it was really interesting because I was watching this on a channel called Breitbart, which I tune into every day. And Breitbart is the great antidote to left-wing thinking on the internet. And I also watch the left-wing channels, the websites and everything like that. And they were having a huge party, and one of the key actors in the rebellion on the part of the British against the European Union was named James Delingpole. And he was having a huge party that night, and he was interviewing everybody. And, and everybody was expressing one sentiment that came through more than anything. We gave up our freedom 47 years ago to become part of the European Union, and we're getting our freedom back tonight. And I was sitting here, and I was at his party, on the Cloudlandia. I was on his party. But it was just really, really interesting, and I wanted to take note of this because I knew I was going to be talking to you right now, 2 days later, and I just wanted to get a interesting thing of the movement that they're actually removing them from the control of the European mainland system and going back to their own mainland system where they will have complete freedom. But all this really was achieved through their mastery of Cloudlandia.
Yeah. Isn't that, I mean, I think about these things like after we had a discussion last week, I really thought about this division, I think it's the big thing. It's navigating this division between the mainland and Cloudlandia that's going to be that's really what's shaping all of this now. Is that there's certain things that can only happen on the mainland, and they're often tethering or slowing down what can happen in Cloudlandia. Like there's the physical, real constraints that happen because of being, physiologically tethered to the mainland.
Yeah, geographically. It's like
But geographically is less relevant.
Talk about
right?
that. Geographics really matter a lot. And
okay, tell me why.
I would tell you. Tell me his name again. The Amsterdam part of Old Town Road. Young Keogh is actually a more famous European than all the bureaucrats in the European Union this weekend.
That's true. Yes, that's right.
He's got more creative impact on the world than everything the European Union has been trying to do for the last 47 years. Okay, and my sense is because
my argument, I'll pause it right there, though, Dan, for a second. I'll pause it right there that the thing is that it doesn't matter. There's geography really had no impact on that. Like he could have been from Mumbai, or he could have been from Cape Town, or wherever he was. It doesn't make any difference because his connection to Cloudlandia is the same no matter where he is, right? Like in the Beatles' time, you would have had to be growing up in Liverpool to find the guys that you're going to make this band with, and you're going to have to become a band in Liverpool and become good before news of the Beatles spreads out to Hamburg. And then you go to Hamburg and then come back and take on the world. That linear sort of geographic progression is eliminated now. That's what I meant about the geography.
Totally agree with you. On the thing, but I think that there's elements of which geography you grow up in that really makes a difference to your ability to see the potential of the Cloudlandia.
I think you're right that you're shaped with it, that you don't have any.
I think you're shaped with it. I mean, because I'm 49 years in Canada, and each of those 49 years has done more to convince me that I'm actually an American.
Right. right. You and Ilko, right?
Well,
you and Ilko. Ilko's an American in Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like Canada. Canada. Is an easy to live with country. They don't require you to be serious about anything.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you can comfortably.
You're going to be. Canada's really, I think, in the best situations, and you are in the sweet spot situations. In that, if you have a Canadian business that can serve an American audience in U.S. dollars,
import bring American dollars back. I don't care what people say. Well, what about the taxes in Canada? I said, let me tell you a little story about that. I've just put in 30 years of bringing American dollars back to Canada. And I had one of my financial advisors actually work out what the average was for every dollar that I brought back over the last 30 years. And I got a 26-cent bonus on every dollar I brought back. Now, you want to talk about Canadian taxes? I can tell you they don't add up to 26 cents more, and everything.
Exactly,
but, so that's taking advantage of differentials in Cloudlandia. It's really, we got to be wise. And I'm talking to the master of figuring out the potential of specific urban geographies. I mean, you've broken every urban area into a particular unique, it's got a unique market potential. I want to tell you that the neighborhood called the Beaches, I want to tell you how you can spend the rest of your life moving from one level of the Beaches to another level. But that's all. But the thing is that you're putting this message out on Cloudlandia. In other words, that you figured this out, and then you say, well, if I can figure it out for one specific neighborhood in the city of Toronto, I bet I can, I can pick the top 50 to 100 other metropolitan areas that are worth thinking about, and I can work out their specific geographic. So my sense is that these worlds are not in opposition for each other. They're uniquely different. And if you have a mastery of one, it ups your chances of actually utilizing the mastery of the other.
I just think, man, I mean, it's so, I've talked with you about this, the cascading asymptotic curves that we've seen over the last 20 years, starting with, text to PDFs to, digital, then to music with MP3s, then to videos, then onto the platforms for them all with all the Kindles and the iTunes and YouTube and all these platforms now. And I was just realizing, I think that the newest cascade is, then it was the physical, the delivery of physical goods to your house in 2 hours kind of thing, or overnight certainly is where we are. Tomorrow morning is the latest you would need to get something. And now with Grubhub and
Ghost Kitchens,
Instacart and Ghost Kitchens, I'm calling this the physical, the retrieval of goods locally. It's not the delivery from afar. It's the retrieval locally, the gathering on a local basis. That is the whole idea of ghost kitchens has evolved from when I first. I remember telling you about hearing this term probably right around the time that we were just getting started with this podcast, and it was a unique thing that was kind of like, oh, what's happening here? People were discovering that, hey, wait a minute, this restaurant doesn't even exist. And that evolved so quickly that now it's gone all the way to cloud kitchen as a service is a category now. And it's makes all the sense in the world how quickly, when we find these slots, somebody moves it into place. And now anybody's got, the execution of anything is getting faster and faster. There's never been a better time to be a stimulator.
I believe that, and I want to tell you something. There's a huge shift going on in the world, and I don't know if you went deep on this, but in the quarter, I think it would be the September-October quarter of 10 times, I gave out a book called The Absent Superpower by a writer by the name of Peter Zion. And to get people interested in him, I send a link to a 1 hour YouTube video, Cloudlandia. And I said, I'm going to give you the book, which is a mainland product, but I said, I'm going to send you the link too. And if you can't read the book, just go to YouTube and watch this 1 hour and 10 minutes video. And
which is what I did.
Yeah, a lot of people did. And I sent it to Joe Polish, and I said, I think it'd be an interesting person to have come and talk to your Genius Network group, and I would test it out first with the 100K group, and I'm going there on Thursday and Friday
this week, right?
Yeah, and it just happened. He got in touch with Peter Zian, and he is on a 10-week swing, publicity swing for his next book, which comes out on March 2nd. And he's going around to groups all over the Southwest. And he just happens to be in Phoenix, Arizona. And he has a 3-day break in his schedule, which coincides with Genius Network. So we're going to spend all day. We're going to spend all day with him on Friday. And Joe said,
wow.
"Well, I don't really, I'm not really, up to date on geopolitical thinking, but I know Dan Sullivan and Bab Smith are, passionate about this, and that's how I found out about you. And so I'm going to be interviewing
nice.
Peter Zian on Friday afternoon. And we just had a Zoom call, Cloudlandia. We had a Cloudlandia connection on Friday, and we talked to him, about what would serve his purposes. And and I asked him, a question, because my feeling is that his thesis, and those of you who are listening and don't know the thesis, he's a geopolitical expert, and he was for a number of years, for I think 12 years, he was the geopolitical analyst for a website called Stratfor, which is really highly thought of in the business and the economic and political world, founded by a man by the name of George Friedman, but Peter Zian was his number one analyst on what the impact of geography and demographics are on the future of the world in terms of which countries are going up and which countries are going down. And he said that we're reaching actually the end of a 75-year period. It ends right now, of where the U.S. basically applied adult supervision to the rest of the world, so that there wasn't a repeat of the First World War and the Second World War, that this is too big a price to pay for, working things out on the planet. So the U.S. military basically created global security, and the U.S. economy and the U.S. market basically provided economic opportunity for everybody on the planet. And it did so by guaranteeing open trade across borders, and the water transportation, which is the backbone of the world economy, is actually water transportation. Getting goods from one country to the other created these possibility of supply chains that might be in 15 or 20 countries. And the U.S. Navy was the number one proponent. All deals were in U.S. dollars, so you had a common currency. And you kept the bad guys who would want to disrupt this, bay, like the Soviet Union, and try to tempt in some of the other bad guys, like the Chinese. But over the last 10 years, Americans generally have come to the point, we've done enough and we don't want to pay for it anymore, because this was all at the disadvantage of U.S. taxpayers and U.S. workers. And Trump comes along in 2016 and says, okay, we've done this, but let's bring it all back home now. And he's basically saying that Trump basically won, because Trump understood that the deal that was put in place, actually 6 weeks after I was born, July of 1944, is now over. And the rest of the world keeps thinking that's going on. But my thesis, I'm going to bring it back to your original report on this podcast, that what those two teenagers, one in Amsterdam, did, and what the other one in Atlanta did, now represents a picture of the future, where all countries can now take their own borders seriously and build their own countries. And the reason is we now have a worldwide network for trading ideas and trading creativity that doesn't require travel.
Yes, exactly. And it's not as much on the physical resources of, like the geographic constraints.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's figured out. Those
something I'm going to have you ponder. And when Eelco comes from Amsterdam, I'll see him on Thursday and Friday at Genius Network. I'll ask him. And he knows the deal. He knows this example. And your thesis on how Old Town Road over the Billboard charts. And my sense is that if you had one guy in Cleveland, Ohio, and the other one in Atlanta, it wouldn't have had the same power. The fact that one of them was in Amsterdam,
the story of the ocean,
and a completely different geography and a completely different culture. And he put something up, and somebody in Atlanta picked up on it. That's what created a lot of the instant power to it. Is that it was actually from two young people with no past to hang on to, but nevertheless formed by their past, created one thing unique in Amsterdam and one thing unique in Atlanta, and those two uniqueness became a global phenomenon.
And I was the nice little elegance of the little detail of the story is that the core sample of the beat was from Trent Reznor, who cites, Bach as his musical influence, which brings you right back to this whole thing of things,
Sebastian Bach, one of my five historic role models,
Yeah. And so that just is so elegant in that,
Yeah. Is that cultural appropriation?
I guess. I think so. Yeah.
I
don't think there's a statute of limitations.
It's got a really bad name, in the campuses, that they won't allow you to serve pizza in the lunchroom because it's cultural.
Well, it's one of those things that was named. It was named by its enemies.
Yeah, named by its enemies, a cultural appropriation. And I said, I don't know. I said, I've been checking out all these examples of cultural appropriation, and I don't know, but they're kind of dynamite. They produce really big results. And where you avoid cultural appropriation, it seems to be really boring. It's kind of like last week's leftover hamburgers. Hamburgers. There's a cultural appropriation. It's a sandwich that comes from Hamburg, Germany.
Ooh. See, there you go. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Long live cultural appropriation.
So anyway, so I'm going to be filming this interview with, and I'm working on giving him 7 questions that will be the best 7 questions he'll get on his tour.
Well, what's really interesting about that too is that 2 things. Eelco happens to be a world-class note taker, and have you ever seen his notes from Necker Island?
Oh yeah.
So great stuff.
Well, I'm sitting right next to him in a lot of the workshops. So
awesome.
I see what he's doing. Yeah.
Well, the good news is he's coming. He's coming to visit me on his way back home. So we're going to spend a couple of days together right after this. So I'll get to see the things. But
we'll have the video. We'll have the video of and then I'm sending this out to all the coach network.
I love it.
And
love it.
And and I talked to him, and he's got a story. The one thing that I always remind myself when I'm in the presence of any new idea, and people say, well, this idea explains everything. And I said, well, first of all, it's a story. I said, and humans are great at stories. And, and the story you tell about the creation of Old Town Road is a great story. What gives us its power, the music is great, the lyrics are great and everything. But the thing that I think is overwhelmingly in its favor is the fact that it's just a great story.
It'd be really cool, Dan, to collect some of these. We need to start a quarterly journal of the free zone files to kind of capture all of these things as it evolves, because they're happening so fast. I'm really paying attention to them.
I think you're the ideal collector here, because you have such a fascination with cultural events, and that's and my sense is, and you're in the cloud a lot, and my sense is that you should collect these things, because I think you're uniquely motivated to do so.
Yeah, this whole I've got something for the free zone files here. Kohl's department store is in a free zone collaboration with Amazon, where they are a collection point for returns to Amazon.
Oh.
So if people buy things from Amazon and they want to send them back, you can just bring them into any of the 1,400 Kohl's stores, and they handle everything from printing out the label, boxing it, and shipping it back for you. And what they do is they give you, in the receipt for it, you get a 25% off coupon while you're here today to buy something at Kohl's. Smart, super smart, right? Like, they got people coming into the store, and you get an offer to buy something physical while you're here, since you're already here.
Well, I've got a collaboration for you, which you don't know about, but I'm going to announce in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
So do you remember our fateful meeting in London?
I do.
So, for the listeners, we were in London for an event, and Dean Jackson was in London for an event, but neither of us were the same event, so it was 2 different events. And we found out, and then we spent time together, and we set each other a challenge that we would each, at a certain point, write a complete book in a 7-day period. Okay.
That's right.
You remember this.
I do. That was November of 2013. 12.
Yes.
13.
Okay. And we each pulled it off.
Yes.
And my book was the book Breakthrough. So I put together a book on how strategic coach clients could use an impact filter, a tool which is at the very center, of growing inside strategic coach. If you just used an impact filter, you could actually outline a complete book, 80% good. In other words, it wouldn't have all the content, but it would have all the main content. And out of this came another creation, and then you said, well, if they do this and they phone this, they link into this site on the internet, which is called the 90-minute book, and they send on their impact filter, I'll have a professional editor actually walk them through and record over a period of 90 minutes a complete outline of the book, taking it from the impact filter, and then we will actually create a small book for you where we'll do an actual mainland a mainland treatment of an actual book. We'll design the cover. We'll completely lay out the type. We'll write the type. We'll do it, and we'll use a service that will give you as many books as you want, so that you can take these books out and test them. In other words, we'll give you a great version 1 of your book. So anyway, a third person enters the scene, and that is Tucker Max, because I'm collaborating with Tucker Max and Ben Hardy and Reed Tracy. Reed Tracy is the owner of Hay House Publishers, and Tucker has a company called Scribe, and he takes authors who want to really go major market with their books, and he'll set it up so that they do the proper marketing and they get it out there. And Tucker just joined Coach, so he's halfway through his first year of 10 times. And so I was talking to him, and I said, I think we've got what he sent out to me, he sent out that he's got a free online walkthrough educating entrepreneurs of all the steps they'll have to go through to actually produce a book. And you just download this. It's called the Authors Academy. And you just download this, and it's free. And all it is educational. It doesn't give you a book. It just tells you all the different things you have to think about. Now, we had a conversation, and he was saying that he was talking to you, Dean, and that he said, we're doing 2 steps, and I'm never going to do your step, and I don't think you're interested in my step. So here's what we propose. So I was talking to Tucker 2 days ago that we, in the Free Zone Frontier at our next, not at the summit, but the Free Zone Frontier in the next quarter, we lay out a 3-person collaboration, and that the first step is we'll hand out the book breakthrough to everybody, and then it'll walk them through on how to actually put their book idea into a impact filter. That's step with me. I'm one of the collaborators, and that's we want you to do this, and then they'll take all their impact filters and they'll send them to 90-minute book, and get back their small books, and then actually, their first book idea, Tucker's going to create a form online. It's just a 6-question form. And if you fill in the form and send in the book idea, somebody live at Scribe will tell you, I think this book has real potential. Now read the book breakthrough and do your impact filter and go through 90-minute book and get back your first small book, and then go out and test it in the marketplace, because you'll get a lot of ideas back from testing it. And then if you want us to help you take it to a bigger book form and get it out in the marketplace, we'll do that for you.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's really the progression, is that, speed of implementation to get things out there. And in some cases, I mean, it's, I think that's phenomenal. And
what do you think about that? Tucker's going to join Free Zone Frontier after he puts in 2 more workshops at the 10 times, because you have to put in 4 workshops in the first year before you qualify for the Free Zone Frontier. And it was so funny, because he said, well, I've talked to Dean about this, and he said, seems like a natural fit, but neither of us had it at the top of our agenda at that time. But I think I'm the trigger here, because we'll start off with Free Zone Frontier, and I think what a great group to start off with, because they're all creating new forms of value creation in the marketplace, which each, they probably are all deserving of a book.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's the whole thing. And nothing like being able to test and get the feedback and get the, seeing what's working to then expand something into a bigger book in the marketplace. The thing that is, that I've always been the intention with the 90-minute book is the speed of getting something out into the market, where you can really have the
check writers can actually be your creative partners.
Yes. Because that's the thing. If you create a book that nobody wants in the beginning, it saves you so much time. And that's what I say is that you can't.
Yeah, they're not going to want it at the end either.
That's exactly. You can't, and likewise, you can't hide a winner. If you've got a winner of a book, people are going to want it and clamor for it. So, there's. I think it's great. That makes a lot of sense.
So it's a deal.
Oh, why wouldn't it be? I mean, it's just it's the same. Tucker, like I said, Tucker and I have had those conversations. It's like I'm not going to do to the extent that Tucker does. We're not helping people polish and get books ready for commercial publication. What we are doing is helping get books out into the world, and that's and he's not doing that. So it totally makes sense.
What I want to emphasize from our conversation here is how precise and how clear each of us is just of our specific role in this collaboration. Because I think that this is the genius of the coming age, is that each person is just very, very clear of what their unique assignment is in a much bigger collaborative process.
Yeah, that's it. I get it. It's so it's the perfect thing, because to go from conception to and they're not unfamiliar with taking books to the New York Times. I mean, Tucker's had several books atop the
he had
New York Times.
He had four at one time. One of the authors, I think, in history. And so he knows the ropes. But he said, if when people approach me, they approach me with one of Dean's small books, it would move us so much further ahead. And if even better yet, they had just answered our 6 questions to begin with and had a little coaching call with us, they would have gotten 80 to 90% more, on target right from the very first action. So my feeling is the speed of being pointed in the right direction is really a crucial thing of anything that happens here. That you're pointed in the right direction, and you're going to not have to learn on your own in isolation things that people could have given you good advice to bypass. Don't go there, go over here, and that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's what a great opportunity for everybody. I mean, to have that sort of capacity all the way through. And I mean, read.
Each of us only does what we do. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to take my involvement in anybody's book creation any further than simply say, here's a book, read the book. And what I'm going to do extra here is I'm going to have Shannon Waller actually interview me on the book breakthrough, because it already exists. So they can go to a link, and then I'll actually walk them through the creation of the impact filter. Nice. And then they will have thought it through. And in addition to I might just send that to your editor, that this is the thinking they went through to create the impact filter. So I think they'll show up. They'll show up at your end better coached. You'll have the confidence at your end that they've been coached by Tucker just to say that this is a good idea. Go forward with it, and they will be coached by me to say and now let's use the impact filter to give the editor at 90-day book a much clearer idea of how to get this started fast. Yeah,
that's good. I'm excited. That's a great, what a great, complete system, especially when Reed is not, unfamiliar with the whole traditional publishing world.
Well, and Reed is, really going at a fast gallop into the entrepreneurial world because he realized, if you look back when they started, I think it was 31 years ago, Hay House, Louise Hayes started this. It was new agey, but new agey 31 years ago is entrepreneurial in 2020.
Yes. Oh yeah, true. That's true. Well, that's all very exciting.
Yeah, and I thought this was a good topic of our joy of procrastination. Each of us has become a committed, infinite procrastinator on every single activity that we should never do.
That's exactly right. And binding together in a flotilla of capabilities. This is great.
Yeah. Procrastinators of the world, cast off your chains.
Yes, I love it. It's so good.
That's a line from Marx. It was interesting. I want to share a brief insight I'd had about 2 weeks ago, and the subject of ADD came up in one of my workshops. And I said, something, first of all, I said I'm clinically diagnosed as ADD at the Amen Clinic, Daniel Amen's clinic. And I said, and I have a lot of, witnesses who will attest to the fact that the diagnosis was correct. And I said, but I have a definition now of, I have a definition of ADD for the new age. And I says, ADD is a chronic inability to pay attention to boring stuff.
I think that's absolutely true. I meant to ask you about your experience now without Adderall, without without doing that daily. How long has it been now since?
Well, first of all, I have to bring you up to date that halfway what I was taking is good for me, like doing it halfway. So if I measure from the time I first announced it, I'm now over that period of time, I've taken about half, but I really required it to get out of bed in the morning. Okay. But I have not been using it at all during the day,
I see.
But there's a slow release form. It's a 10 meg of Adderall. It's it's in a capsule, release form, time release form. And I just take it first thing I pop out of bed, I take it. And I don't notice, and what it does, it doesn't have a sharp and immediate impact, but the days when I've been 2 hours delayed in taking it, I really, really notice that I haven't kick-started yet, and this kick-starts me. But what I've got it down is that I've completely eliminated all use of it during the day. I don't need it again during the day, and that's it. I can't say it's been clear and free because there are periods when I feel myself bogging down, and the funny thing is that the actual explanation of attention deficit disorder is just the opposite. I think what the general public thinks, that these are super fast, super fast connectors. And what I've learned from reading, also going with that, it's actually because we're slow connectors in our brains that we need more exciting stimuli to keep us interested. Okay. And that actually the Adderall because it's, it's an amphetamine, it's actually speed. So the amphetamine speeds you up like normal people. In other words, we're slower than normal people, whatever that is. And, we don't have enough there's not enough happening in our environment to stimulate us as much as people without AD, that they're normally stimulated by things, and we're saying no. And I think the reason is that we have a high need for novelty.
I think that's true, and engagement. I guess, like, I find our podcasts, our times together like this, as a dose of Adderall, in a way that I'm never not engaged and stimulated.
I think that's one of the highest. I think that's one of the highest compliments I've ever received. That I'm just a walking, talking human form of Adderall for you.
That's exactly it. You're my Adderall. And it's like an extended release because
and vice versa. Yeah, and vice versa. I find I'm at my most far-ranging in bringing up topics with the confidence I know that you're going to immediately pick up on what I'm going to talk and what I'm talking about of anybody I've ever met in my life. I bring up any topic, and there's an instant read. You say, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about that."
Isn't that funny? And I find it lasts after I'm sitting here with my Remarkable, and I make notes and stuff. Often after we hang up, and it's just it stimulates so many thoughts that I just kind of I'm scribbling notes on my Remarkable as I'm going there. By the way, I forget what your stance is on the Remarkable tablet.
Yeah, well, it's not my way of doing things.
No, okay.
I mean, it's nothing against it, and I always tell people, I always tell them, and when people ask me about time management or they tell me about recording things, I said, I'm going to tell you the best system in the world, and they say, oh yeah, please. What's the best system in the world? I said, the one that you're excited about using every day over a long period of time.
Yeah. Yes.
And I said, I have to tell you, I don't recommend time management systems. I don't recommend note-taking systems. I don't recommend. And I said, because everybody I've met, when you dig deep, they seem to have they've developed a system that really works for them. And my only encouragement for them is that they use the system that they know that works for them.
Yes. Yeah.
And my go-to these days is the Fast Transformer.
So is that similar to
it's the experience
filter? Yeah.
It's the experience. And so I started the 1st of October. Actually, it was the 3rd of October because I was in London for the memorial for Stefan Bissenbach's son, sad occasion. But I came back to London and I was staying at Ham Yard. Ham Yard is, in the Soho system, the Ferndale, right up Piccadilly, and we were staying there. And I said, I did for 25 years from 1978 to 2013. I kept a journal, and I said, instead of keeping a journal, I'm going to do at least one experience transformer, but not the big one, just the fast transformer. Yeah. And I'm going to do that. And I've done that for the last 4 months. And I have to tell you, for me, and again, remember, this is my system, and I want to tell our listeners here, it may not work for you, but for me, right where I am right now at 75 years old, that this system just works. And I've done it every single day since the 3rd of October. And I actually have averaged more than one a day. And what it is, I'm in any situation and I say, this situation I'm in, it's like I did one during the week. I was saying, I've got Dean next Sunday. And I said, I'm going to write down the 5 things that have really worked about the Joy of Procrastination. I wrote it down. And then I said, what's not working? And I said, one thing that's not working is that I'm not taking key points that we make and get them down so that I can see where this fits into the free zone frontier. And so, for example, I was quick to jump on the fact that you're going to give an update on Old Town Road. And I said, "Oh, but I hadn't done that if I hadn't put down a note for myself in the Fast Transformer that I've got to take what Dean is doing on the Joy of Procrastination podcast, and I've got to kind of grab something and bring it forward so that it's valuable to the free zone frontier." And that's why I did that. And then I had the Zoom call with Tucker, and so I said, instead of talking off stage with Dean about this, I'm just going to make it part of the Joy of Procrastination. We're going to talk about our collaboration right on air.
I like it. Yeah, that's awesome. That was pretty cool. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, if you have the thought, why not create desired reality? Yeah. And the time delay that it takes for you and me, the time between when we have a new thought and the actual reality, if that's too long in between, it's dead.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and part of that thing, it's funny that I mentioned, in my mind, I'm keeping kind of an informal, free zone files, like just observing what's happening, that there's an example of it right there.
Oh,
and, and seeing it all with 3D vision, It was so, it's so amazing to me because I mentioned to you this whole idea of, approaching, you were talking about always be the buyer as, an example, and always, I was thinking about that same thing, always be the bringer of value to people, like approaching a business from the receiving dock is a totally different experience than going through the purchasing department.
Shipping dock. The
shipping dock. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're very guarded with what they ship out.
On which side of the factory are all of the bars and restaurants? They're on the
right,
shipping
exactly. The 1 mile.
That's where everybody. Yeah, that's where everybody's out with their bowl, hoping to get some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've just had that, and that with other. I look at it with other businesses that even though.
Well, look at Kohl's. Look at your Kohl's example. Yeah, I mean, is there anything? I mean, God, you'd say, is there any more worthless economic activity on the planet than returns from Amazon?
Right.
You don't even want to think about it. Returns from Amazon, key. Or you say to yourself, wow, I never knew anyone returned anything from Amazon. It's kind of like a wake-up call, if you can get it fast, you can reject it fast too,
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may find that they've got just what you need at Kohl's while you're there, and you get 25% off.
Yeah. Today. Now, do they actually sell the returned stuff, or do they find another way of getting it?
They return it to Amazon.
Oh.
They ship it. They actually ship it right back to Amazon.
So Amazon has actually removed one step, or maybe 5 steps. They've actually, by using Kohl's.
Yes, exactly. Yep, it's like just they're having Kohl's be there. Just like if you were getting something from a regular store, you'd bring it back to the physical store kind of thing. They're creating that opportunity for
so they have
easy.
Well, look at it from Kohl's standpoint. They've just significantly multiplied the number of people who are going to come to Kohl's.
Yeah, who have something that didn't work that maybe they've got. That's
and and the other thing is that they've created a new point of sale with every person who comes in with a Amazon return. In other words, here's a 25% off anything in our store today. You just walk around it. I mean, one of the big problems with retail is how do you actually get them to come to the store?
In the store. Now they're in the store. It's like so beautiful.
Now they're in the store.
I'm going to see if I can find any.
That's a beauty. That's a beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can find any analysis or impact of what
so
they did, but they just rolled it out.
Well, here's Kohl's, like all retailers, decades. I don't know if they're a century old, but they're certainly venerable. And all kvetching about how Amazon is killing them, and they just said, well, you don't have to outrun the bear. You just have to have somebody between you and the bear. So
yeah,
and they've basically said we're going to use Amazon to kill our retail competition.
Yes, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I mean they're not going to other retail stores. They're not going to Target. They're not going to Target to return their Amazons. They're going to Kohl's.
Yeah.
They're not going to Costco. They're not going to Costco. They're going to Kohl's, Yeah. And I mean, it really shows you what collaborative thinking does, because it's a win-win-win-win. There's just no losses in this entire. And the other thing is that Amazon's money is Amazon's money, and Kohl's money is Kohl's money.
Yes. It's beautiful, right? Like that's the great thing about the free zone frontier.
Yeah, I love it. You're okay. I just want you to know you are designated with the unique assignment of bringing real world Cloudlandia featured examples of free zone collaboration.
I will do that. I'll program that section for us. That would be fantastic.
That'll be amazing inventory of things, and I mean, you have the uniquely weird brain to actually do this.
That's great. That's right. Your favorite weirdo. That's it. I love it.
We got to put this to use.
Yes.
That's my first thought. And
yes.
Anyway, this was very, very enjoyable just because of things popping in the real world, and Grammy Awards last weekend, and Super Bowl.
That makes it official, right? I mean, that's like
it sure does.
Of awards. That's main.
Yeah, it really does. Anyway, good. I tell you what.
Okay.
I'm on the road, so I'm off to Arizona on Tuesday, and then we're there. So I'm 2 weekends away in Arizona. But what I'm going to do is have Caroline just give you a shout that we can do in between times, not on Sundays. Can't.
Okay.
Well, we can do it on Sunday. It doesn't matter to me. I'll be in Canyon Ranch next Sunday, and I'll be in Canyon Ranch second Sunday. So we'll just do it at 11 o'clock your time on the next 2 Sundays, but I'll do it from Canyon Ranch.
So the next, it'll be the Sunday.
Well, see where
after
you
next.
are.
Because I'm going to be, Ilko's going to be with me on that next Sunday. But so in the following Sunday, 2 Sundays from today, we'll reconvene.
Okay. And that'll be just before before the summit. That'll just be before the summit.
That's right.
All right.
That's good.
Any possibility you could put your Old Town Road thing together this would be for the 20th. So I've gotten this 3 weeks, a little bit more than. Do you think you could put it together by then? Because I'll feature you at the summit.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course.
That would be a thrill to everybody, because we about half the room, half the room isn't going to be members of Free Zone Frontier. They're staff members and collaborators from outside.
Perfect. Yep.
All right.
Okay. It's all very exciting.